Welcome to the Best of U.S. Investors, Two Regular Guys show. This is Mark over here, and I'm Trent. And today we're going to talk about these guys, dock workers, and the strike that is slated to happen tomorrow, the 1st of September or 1st of October.
October.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
Time is
you're
going
behind.
by fast. Holy
Yep.
cow. So, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Boeing and their strike that's going on. And we're going to talk about how all of this affects you and I here in the United States. So let's get going.
So wheat.
Hey,
That's a nice
Mark.
thing. Well, you're down there in Savannah, so that's awesome. Waiting for
Yeah.
waiting for the strike to start.
Well, I don't know. I'm getting a little nervous, actually. Uh,
Not me. We went
I,
shopping, so we're full of everything. So we're good. We're
well,
preppers, I
good.
guess. She's a prepper, so she's got enough to keep us going.
Well,
So
Mark,
plus I
go
live in
ahead.
the middle of a cornfield, so I've got corn and cattle and beef and stuff. So we're good.
Yeah, unlike
Generators.
myself, who lives on the
Well,
panhandle of Florida,
yep.
and we don't have a cow in the backyard or we don't have all that kind of stuff. And it's probably how most of America lives is I guess, secure,
Prepared.
unprotected, or
I think
unprepared.
well we've had it so good for so long that we haven't really experienced too much pain, maybe during the 70s when they had, stagflation and recession, during World War II when people were rationed. Jan's dad has these old ration cards where you'd have to take them out and you got like so much sugar or flour a week, which is
Holy
pretty,
cow.
yeah. Can imagine that today if we had to do that,
That's
and how
pretty
people
brutal.
would, or if you had, turn your power off for, 12 hours a day or whatever. And that's what happened back in those times. So we may be close to them again. I don't know. That's the nice thing about the Two Regular Guys shows is we talk about the economy, we talk about financial markets and other topics that affect the regular people of America, without the spin of corporate media and financial talking heads, which is what today was about. And we were talking before we started the video that CNBC and Squawk Box this morning and halftime, report, they didn't talk at all about this port strike, and it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's huge. So,
Well,
let's talk about. Go ahead.
let's talk about this because I don't honestly, we've been talking about it for about 2 or 3 weeks now,
At least,
but
yeah.
you haven't really heard a whole lot about what is happening. So let's just do like a recap of what is
Okay.
happening and where this is potentially headed. So
So this
take it
is
away.
this is Monday, September 30th. We're filming this, and at midnight tonight, a potential coast-wide strike at Atlantic and Gulf Coast container ports could disrupt the U.S. supply chains and impact the upcoming holiday shopping season. And that's what industry experts are saying. Okay. The International Longshoremen Association, they call themselves the ILA, the United States Maritime Alliance, they're the port owners and represent the owners. They're locked in a contentious negotiation. Actually, they're not even negotiating. I heard that broke down in June. Okay. On a new master contract. The current agreement expires today, September 30th. Okay. And I put out on our Discord, a 20-minute interview of the ILA's
President.
union boss president, and
Yeah.
he's not happy. Okay. So
No.
you can look in our Discord and you can see that, especially the last 2 minutes when he's talking about, I can crush you guys, and I'm like, whoa, my
Oh yeah.
gosh, and
Yeah.
um, so the ILA, they're based in New Jersey. They represent 85,000 workers across the Eastern Gulf Coast, of which 45,000 are affected in this strike. And they're demanding a sizable wage increase for its members, as well as protection from automation. Okay, now that's an interesting thing because everything's automated, and how they're going to do that's going to be interesting. But that's their main focus. And we have a member of our Platinum Discord down in Jacksonville, and he's got people that work on those docks, and that's what their worry is. So the ILA union walked away from a bargaining table in June. I didn't know they were negotiating that far back. They were declaring that a type of automation introduced at the port of Mobile, Alabama, down by where you live, was in
Yeah.
violation of the current contract. That automation is a gate system that processes trucks entering and exiting the APM terminals without the use of ILL labor. So they're worried about losing jobs. Okay, well, if I was a union leader, I'd be the same. Okay,
That's your
the
job,
lack of
right?
yeah, and this is I didn't know this, but the lack of automation is a primary reason that U.S. ports rank near the bottom of global port efficiency ratings. That's according to the World Bank's 2022 Port Performance Index. The average North American port ranking is 3 times lower than East Asian ports and almost twice as bad as Central American, South American, and Caribbean ports, and not far ahead of the sub-Saharan African ports. Okay, so I didn't know that. So they're
I
automating
didn't
all over
either.
the world, and we're not. I guess and I'm no expert on ports, but I do like riding on boats. So,
Right.
uh, but pay is also an issue. So, automation and pay. Union workers, I didn't know this either. Union workers at ports in the East and Gulf Coast earn a base wage of $39 an hour after 6 years on the job, compared to reports that the West Coast Union, and they just had their strike a couple of years ago, they make 54.85 an hour. Okay.
Holy cow.
Yep. So the International Longshoremen's Association is demanding a 77% pay raise increase over 6 years. You don't think that'll cause a little inflation, wage inflation in the country?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So according to news sources, the USMX, the owners, they responded with an offer of 40% in wage increases, but the union rejected it and they called it the counter a joke. Okay. So a strike would effectively shut down 3 dozen locations at 14 port authorities along the East and Gulf Coast, causing shortages and driving up prices on a host of goods. And let me show you a map. I think I got a map here. Okay,
Oh, well.
so here's what we're looking at. Okay, it goes all the way from Boston, New York, New Jersey, Delaware River, Baltimore, Hampton Roads, West Virginia, Wilmington, North Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, Savannah, where you are right now, Jackson,
Yeah.
Florida, Miami, Port Everglades, Florida, Tampa, uh, Mobile, Alabama, New Orleans, and Houston. Okay, and you can see 2,000 workers in Houston, 507 New Orleans, 563 in Port Everglades, 690 in Miami. I mean, 1,700 in Hamptons, Virginia. That's I think there. I think that's where the all your bananas go through there. Your Dole bananas.
Oh,
3,300
well.
in New York and New Jersey. I'll tell you a little bit about New York and New Jersey here in a minute. But anyway, it's the entire East Coast and the Gulf Coast. As you can imagine, a lot of petrochemicals and oil come in through the Houston port.
Yeah.
Okay, so think about that if that's all locked up, and it's going to start tonight, according to what they're saying. So buckle up, Buttercup. So anyway, what would be the impact of this strike? Okay, so we're shutting down, 45 ports. Um, uh, 52% of everything that comes in the country comes through those ports. So a port strike would impact vehicle imports, auto parts, machinery, fabricated steel, precision instruments. Uh, and the port of Baltimore, Maryland, that's the leads the nation in car shipments. So they're talking about, and even I think the president of the union said, within 2 weeks, you're not going to have any new cars on the lots. You know, uh, agricultural impacts, okay, such as the import of bananas and fruits, or exports of soybeans and soybean meal, because we're in harvest season here in the Midwest. All that's supposed to be going out. Nothing's going out either. You got to remember that. So it's going
Yeah.
to impact our imports and exports. Even more significant would be felt on chilled or frozen meat products and eggs, which require refrigerated containers that cannot sit very long. Any fruit that arrives after October 1st will be condemned to the trash can. Peter Copsey, Sr. of Port Washington-based importer Kopke Fruit Company, told the Orange County Register, and all the people who have invested in that business will lose a fortune. Virtually
Holy
all
cow.
bananas, yeah, virtually all bananas eaten in the United States are imported, and 1.2 million metric tons of banana flow through the ILA represented ports, with Port Wilmington, Delaware. It was Delaware, not Virginia, declaring itself America's largest banana port. Banana imports through these ports represent 25% of U.S. banana consumption, according to figures from the American Farm Bureau. So if you like bananas, you better go store up on them now. Okay.
Right.
Knitted, if you like knitted or non-knitted apparel, furniture, plywood, pharmaceutical products, and year-end holiday items, they might be among the endless list of products impacted by this strike. So when you think about it, the impact of the strike now is going to be way more impactful for Christmas and not next week or the week after. Those ships will take longer to do their rounds, come back and create a backlog. And that's the CEO of Synergy Maritime said, which combines operates 25 dry bulk ships. DeSantis adds the worst possible time for a port strike, since it'll potentially affect the Christmas shopping season because there might be shortages or things might not arrive on time. This may be a bit overblown though, because typically, from what I researched, 70% of goods and retailers have stocked up for the holidays is already probably shipped through the ports by this time of year. So 30% is what we're looking at, according
Yeah.
to what my research says.
Well,
So go ahead.
and I know from Ginger's perspective, she used to wholesale to stores. Those stores in her product, granted it was made in the United States, would start shipping at the end of September and October. She did some design work years earlier, and that product was made. You had to order that in January, February, and it was manufactured and hit the shores in July, August, and then shipped
Right.
out September, October. So a lot of goods could be hitting the shores, but there's a lot of other stuff that's going to be missing.
Absolutely. So when you think about the impact, this portfolio manager of AccuVest, his name is Eric Clark, he predicts severe economic repercussions if the strike extends beyond a week. This certainly has the possibility of being a very bad outcome, he said. From our perspective, any strike that lasts more than 1 week could cause goods shortages for the holidays. He's also concerned about inflation risk from a strike, and so am I, noting that the Fed can't fix the inflation problem that would be created from these stoppages. It can't. Think of the prices that are going to go up. This thing of what are bananas going to cost if you get bananas or anything that we just talked about? He said we could get the kind of inflation for 6 months similar to or worse than peak inflation levels a year ago. Okay, that was 9%. Okay, that we were talking about. Um, Ocean carriers, this is another thing. Ocean carriers are estimating that every day of a strike will lead to 5 to 10 days of cargo building up. Uh, uh, if it only lasts for a few days, it's probably a non-issue in the scheme of big things. But if it lasts for more than a week or two, we will see months of capacity shortages, the likes we haven't seen since COVID. Okay, remember COVID? Okay,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at. And
Well, and here's
I
the
didn't
thing
hear.
about COVID. COVID
Go ahead.
was these guys were still working.
Yeah,
These
yeah,
guys are still working, which is one of their sort of talking points is that they worked while we all stayed home
yep,
and they want to be compensated for it.
yep.
So can you
So,
imagine if they don't?
oh, I know it's going to be. I mean, it's going to be bad. I mean, this guy says if the strike lasts for more than a month, we're talking about depression level shortages rippling across the entire US economy and outward from there to the wider world, he added. Okay. And I agree with that. Okay. Think about it. So everyone's like, oh, we'll just ship it to the West Coast, which you'd have to go down through the Panama Canal. Well, they're already at capacity. And if goods are forced to ship to the U.S. West Coast, um, Rabobank speculates that the Asia-U.S. freight rates could leap to $20,000, far above peak seen in the last supply chain crisis. So the freight rate's going to go up, and that's called inflation too, because that's going to tack on everything that's coming in those containers is going to be way high. And this would mean firms with low margins might opt not to import at all, creating empty shelves. Okay, so
It,
let's have some more fun news. So what about jobs that are related to the shipping industry outside of this union? And so I just went up and I looked at New York and New Jersey. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey is coordinating with partners across the supply chain to prepare for any impacts from possible work stoppage, noting that 240 billion in goods move through the two ports each year, and that such trade supports more than 600,000 local jobs. So we're going from 45,000 to 600,000 in New York and New Jersey. Okay.
that's in
So
New York and New Jersey alone.
only, yep,
That doesn't include Mobile, Alabama, or New
nope,
Orleans, or
or
Houston,
Houston, or
or where
Florida,
I'm at today, or Savannah,
Savannah,
Georgia.
nope.
Wow.
So, so I mean, it's a bigger thing than you think about it. And the same thing goes with Boeing, except this is like way bigger because we're talking about not just airplane. parts and aerospace manufacturing. We're talking about worldwide goods shipping.
Right.
Okay. But don't worry. Despite the growing concerns, President Biden has reiterated that he does not plan to intervene in the dispute. It's collective bargaining. I don't believe in the Taft-Hartley, Biden stated, referring to the law that allows presidents to impose an 80-day cooling off period on labor disputes that threaten national security or the economy. He's not planning on doing anything. Okay. Which is amazing to me. But again, this morning someone was shouting to him, reporter, and he said, what about Yemeni strike on Israel? And he answered back, well, I've talked to both parties, and neither one of them want to strike, so we're not going to have a strike. So he was talking about the dock workers strike, and not. I guess all I heard, he didn't hear Yemen strike on Israel. So anyway, he's on it. So Goldman Sachs always comes out, and they came out with a paper for their customers, their clients, on the current state of the supply chain and freight environment for the retail industry. And so they went and looked at American Apparel and Footwear Association estimates that 53% of all U.S. apparel, footwear, and accessory imports are routed through the East and Gulf Coast. The AFA also noted risk from the East and Gulf port disruptions to impact the West Coast port operations, creating strains and delays across the supply chain. Separately, the Retail Industry Leaders Association has also stated that while retailers have activated contingency plans to mitigate potential effects of work disruption, it becomes harder to mitigate the longer the work stoppage goes on. The analysts then surveyed retailers about their freight exposure at U.S. ports. In one instance, Dollar Tree warned about that half of its products pass through the Gulf in East Coast ports. And I got a chart here that Goldman has. I'll show. This just goes down and breaks up company like Costco. The vast amount of Costco imports are sourced out of the West Coast. Okay. So they've been watching the port strike closely over time and taking several preemptive measures. DKS, they just have a Dollar Tree know the vast majority of 50% of their freight is coming from the East Coast ports. I noted they're investing in inventory at levels that ensure they can support the needs of various disruptions. So they went through the different companies. Ollie, discounts management noted that imports remain a relatively small part of the business. Target noted the majority of their shipments are processed in the West Coast. So, there's some good news on that. JX noted they're planning for incremental pressures in the second half from elevated ocean spot rates as the company utilizes capacity beyond their contracted amount. PVH say they historically utilize East Coast ports. Gap, Morg, GPS products flow through the West Coast ports. Macy's, the company noted, while most of all their imported goods are sourced from Asia, transit through the West Coast, they have been diversifying their supply chain in recent years to prevent over-reliance on any individual ports. So you can see there's, these companies have been looking and knowing that something's coming up, and they've also had to deal with, the Red Sea issue with the terrorists firing on those ships, making them go around Africa instead. So again, that's what we got coming. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen, but it's going to happen tonight, pretty much at midnight.
Let me show you one other chart here.
Okay. Yeah.
I sent this to you. Okay. So the number one store that most people use is Walmart. This will have that. They are one of the biggest affected retailers in the United States, will be most likely Walmart, because they get so many of these goods and out of foreign countries. IKEA, Samsung. I didn't know Bob's Discount Furniture. I'm not familiar with that unless that's the parent company of somebody. Home
Must be
Depot.
regional. Must be regional somewhere, but yeah, but it
Yeah,
must be big enough though.
Home Depot. Yep. Hyundai. That I was like, whoa, that's a car company that, they don't get parts, they don't put cars out, they don't have car sales. Dollar
Yeah.
General, you mentioned just earlier, General
Yeah.
Motors, was they're having some, issues. I think Ford and General Motors are having some discussions as well with their workers. Amazon, not as
Well,
big as Walmart, but I gotta believe Amazon is affected probably in a way because they are getting goods and service, goods from a lot of these foreign countries. I
Yep.
think the thing they have a diversification in is that they have sellers who host their stores on Amazon. But those products, if they come from overseas, they're going to be affected as well. So I think Amazon's probably higher on the list than what we're seeing here. But I mean, you can see it all. I mean, it goes down to, you need new tires, you go to the Goodyear place, they're going to be affected. Michelin, Heineken, God forbid. Are you kidding me? Beer
Yeah.
companies? Holy cow. And then Pepsi. So
I
when
see
I see
I see Folgers on there too, so that's coffee coming from
Folgers,
South America, just like the
yeah,
bananas. Yeah.
yeah. So when I look at this, I go, this is, and I think the longer it goes on, the more companies are going to be affected. But more importantly, are the companies and mom and pop stores that have businesses in these cities. These people go on strike. That means people don't have as much money. That means the retailers and the dining facilities are all going to be affected because if you don't have any money, you don't go out to dinner. If you don't have any money, you don't go to McDonald's, or you don't buy, clothing from your local retailer. This is very big, and it sounds like the attitude that the president of the organization that's leading this is like, you're going to give us what we want, and until you do, you're going to reap the repercussions of it. Yeah,
Well,
I
it's going to be interesting how they fight automation,
yeah.
because so I, everyone has a right to, you know, strike or join a union if you're in the union states, and and it's their right to do that, and I understand why they do that. So I'm
Hmm.
going to sit, like I said, I'm going to sit here and watch and see how it progresses. But I don't see any way after listening to their union president and the fact that our administration is not going to do anything. I don't, and as angry as he is, I don't see any way unless the management companies just give in totally. And I don't know that they're going to do that, but I don't know. But again, I'll sit here and watch it. But a lot
I
of people
guess
are going to be affected. A lot of people are going to be hurt.
Yeah. And I guess my question is this, the management company is very confident that they have a contingency plan that when this thing goes off, that they're going to implement right away. And they could sidestep this. I mean, is that what they're thinking? I mean, I understand, automation on, when a truck comes through and goes out. I mean, to me, that just makes sense from an efficiency standpoint. It's more of what other automation do they feel confident that they could put in place in the next 30 to 90 days that they never have to get to the bargaining table on this? What is it they're
Yeah.
thinking?
Well, I mean,
No, because
it's
they're going to lose
prevalent.
money as well.
Yeah. Well, I think they probably stocked up. They've made so much money during COVID. And most of these companies are foreign companies to the U.S. Shipping companies. So um, we'll see. We'll see. I just can't believe that no one's really talking about it. They'll start talking about it tomorrow, but we've been talking about it, like I said, for 10 days, and I've been like shaking my head. We got this huge potential black swan sitting out there on the pond that no one's looking at. They're looking at the election, or they're looking at, oh, look, the Fed's talking, or look at this little report over here. Isn't that great? And oh, the consumer is resilient. Let's talk about resilience when there's nothing to buy. The prices are
Right.
sky high. This could
You
just
know,
blow the economy right out of the water.
well, we talk about AI and the AI companies because that's Kerry's thesis on the evolution of our world when it comes to technology. And I got to wondering, where does NVIDIA ship their goods into? They're building out all these factory or these data centers in the United States. There's a lot of money going into that right now. There's computers, there's parts, but does this affect some of the key AI companies like NVIDIA, like Google, like Microsoft, Amazon, or are they more West Coast driven? And then
Well,
the
there's
other
a
part of it I got to thinking was, well, if my brother's going to strike on the East Coast, would I strike on the West Coast? Or would I do something in support of them? I don't know. I know they just had a strike and they renegotiated a contract, but is there a brotherhood there that, if one goes, we all go kind of thing?
Haven't heard anything on that yet, so I don't know.
No.
But again, we'll see. But anyway, that's we just wanted to bring it up. But that's not the only strike going on. Let's talk
No.
about Boeing. So over the weekend, nearly 33,000 unionized Boeing factory workers are ending the third week of strikes after negotiations between the union and the aerospace giant collapsed over the weekend. So on Twitter, or X, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers wrote in a post late Friday that zero progress has been made on the new labor contract. This is 3 weeks old with Boeing. While conversations were direct, we did not make progress on the pension issue. The company remains adamant that it will not unfreeze the defined benefit plan. The company also would not engage substantially about other issues that the membership has made clear remain top priorities like higher pay, quicker wage progression, and more PTO. The union said more bluntly, talks broke off and we have no further dates scheduled at this time. Okay. So, okay, this has been going on for 3 weeks, and this affects not more than the 33,000. Boeing has like 11,000 suppliers of parts, and some of these are just little shops. Okay, I've been to them. Okay, with small amounts. We talked last week about a little, a forging company in Orange County that might have to lay off all 25 employees and may not survive. Okay, this is another big thing going on out there you don't hear about all that much. So Bloomberg notes that each day of the strike has cost Boeing about $100 million by some estimates each day.
Holy
Multiple
cow.
credit rating agencies, including Fitch and Moody's, warned in recent weeks that Boeing's credit rating was at risk of being downgraded from investment grade to junk bond status. In the bigger picture, we need to look at Boeing's supplier network. What's emerging for Boeing is a downstream effect of strikes. That includes a reduction in spending on suppliers. Boeing's website said there are 11,000 active suppliers worldwide, which could trigger layoffs and destructions across its supplier network. If the Boeing supplier network was to experience throttling or shutdowns on a prolonged strike, how long would it take to get that network back up and running if they even had it? Let me just show you a chart here on Boeing.
Oh,
Okay. This is Boeing's exposure to relative companies. Okay, here's some suppliers. 334. You've got Panasonic Holdings, RTX. Okay, that's Raytheon, Spirit
mhm.
Aerosystems, GE Aerospace, Safran, Honeywell, Mitsubishi, Dassault, Rolls-Royce, Leonardo, Berkshire Hathaway, okay, Parker Hannifin. Those are just some of the suppliers, okay. Uh, Companies that are competitors: Airbus, BAE Systems, Bombardier, Commercial Aircraft, GD, Lockheed Martin. Here's their customers: United States of America, Ryanair Air, United Airlines, ANA Holdings, Alaska Airlines Corp, Southwest Airlines, Air China, China South, Qatar Airlines. I mean, this is a huge thing. Okay,
Well,
and
look at
these are just
The United States is 39.6% of the revenue for Boeing.
right. Customers. Yep.
Yeah,
Look at
that's
Panasonic, 12.35%. Okay. Just of their company goes into Boeing. That's a big company.
yeah, that's paralyzing.
Yeah. And this doesn't even talk about the little teeny companies, and 11,000, these are 344, right here. And this goes beyond just companies. It goes to countries. Let me show you this one. Found this to be interesting. So this is a 787, okay? Airlines have ordered more than 600 of the 787s, which Boeing promises will burn less fuel, cost less to maintain. Parts of the planes come from around the world. Movable trailing edge, Australia. Wingtip, South Korea. Wing, Japan. Forward fuselage, Japan. I used to make those for the DC-10s. Wheel well, Japan. Tail fin, Washington. Leading edge, Tulsa, Oklahoma. That was probably Rockwell. Engines, Chula Vista. That's probably Rohr Corporation. Forward fuselage, Wichita, Kansas. Okay. Fairing, Canada. Cargo doors, Sweden. Landing gear, UK. Engines, UK. That's Rolls-Royce. Center fuselage, Italy. Horizontal stabilizer, Italy. We used to get a lot of stuff from Italy too when I was working in the industry. Charleston, South Carolina. This is all over the world. Okay. If they're not making these things, all these companies in all these countries are going to start losing some of their GDP because aerospace and airplanes is huge in GDP. It's just that big because of all the parts and how much these things cost and where they come from. It's amazing.
It is amazing. And I think it's so I look at this and I go, okay, what is you're at home, you're watching this video and you're going, well, crap, what do I do? How do I protect my 401k? How do I protect myself? And I think that is probably a big question. It's going to start rolling through people's minds. And this is not something you just go, oh, it'll work itself out. Oh, they'll get to the bargaining table. I think these guys are so irritated and this discrepancy in what they're making, which they're making good money. Don't some of these guys are making like six-figure incomes because they're putting in overtime. They get almost double and triple overtime. So they're very fortunate in that way. But I understand the whole idea of automation being put out of a job, which I think honestly every industry is going to be subjected to in the coming, 5, 10 years as technology and artificial intelligence ramps up even further. But it's sort of like as you've created, wealth, you've built a portfolio, you've made money, this is one of those things that could devastate you for a long time. Where do you go? How do you protect yourself? Uh, I think that's a big question people are going to be asking. And,
Absolutely.
you know, I look at the price of gold, and I think it was Goldman, I believe, raised their target on gold to $2,900 just today. Um, it's at all-time highs already. I think you're seeing that flight to safety element. U.S. Treasury over the last 3, 5 months has fallen in the yields have fallen, which means the bond values go up. You're starting to see that more and more. And so,
But look at the 10 year.
it's
The 10 year went up today, you know?
oh, it went up. Okay, so
Yeah.
that doesn't help mortgage rates. But
No,
it's
it's not
sort of
helping
like
anything.
with as this thing continues to roll out, where is the migration of smart money going to go to? And
Back to safety.
I flight to safety. So where if you go back and look at the great financial crisis, dot-com crisis, it's who has the safest asset that I can put money in and it's liquid and I can most likely, weather a storm, a financial storm. And I think you're going to start to see if this thing continues to roll, get momentum, and we're well into it, over 30 days, you're going to see a flood of money going to these conservative defensive asset classes. So it's something I think people need to think about and put some thought to is what if this thing lasts 30 days? Well, if every day of them on strike equals 5 days just to get back to even, I mean, that's 150 days if you're
Long
30
time.
days into this. That's a long time. And that's a quarter's worth of earnings. And so you start to see that in the first quarter and second quarter of next year. That's, I think, how big this is.
That's big.
Wait, yeah. I mean, miraculous things have happened, but the attitude that has been presented by, them, I think it's one of those things you got to protect yourself. You got to take caution because
He's
this,
serious.
yeah.
This is the president of the union.
Do you
That
think,
was in Baltimore.
right?
What was the question again?
Well, it was just about I remember how significantly it impacted our businesses, like the supply chain, because I
glad you
live
brought that
on the
up.
Chesapeake
Let me
Bay,
explain
and all
something.
the ships were just waiting on the other
Liz,
side.
let me explain something to you. These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets, from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's gonna happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. And in today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, the last 2 minutes, you're going to be able to see him go nuts.
Well, and the thing is, it's in listening to him and his attitude about this, and I get it, you know, it's awfully, it's a little scary because it affects everybody, even them, it affects. So how prepared are they to follow through with this? I mean, is this
Well, I think they are because, look on his shirt. His shirt here says a force to be reckoned with. That's pretty bold. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't
want to go down an alley and meet him.
No, I don't even know what his Mr. T chain says on it, but it looks pretty mean too. So
Yeah, yeah.
um,
So I think it's, as an investor, you have to consider this is a known market event.
no kidding.
It's the unknown market event that could be the repercussions of these actions that we don't know what could happen. The attitude of Washington, D.C. about this, like whatever,
It's
you know,
laissez-faire, yeah. Yeah.
laissez-faire about it. What are the repercussions? And in a election year, how does this affect how we look at Washington, how we look at all these organizations? I think this could be pretty big, and
I,
this could be that black swan event.
well, I said this morning in the Discord for the morning news, I said that normally this week we'd all be looking, and we still are at the non-farm payroll report on Friday. But this dwarfs that to me, this story and
Yeah.
what's going to happen in 7, 8 hours now. This
Yeah.
dwarfs the. No, I don't care what happens in non-farm payroll. This is number one for me as just a regular guy going, crap. I might not be able to go get parts for my tractor. I might not be able to, you know, the price of food might just double again.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. I don't know. Not trying to be an alarmist, but when someone tells me that 45 ports going to be shut down, that 52% of the goods are coming into the country and going out of the country,
Yeah.
being here in farm country, what are we going to do sitting on these pile of soybeans and corn all year? I mean,
Right.
till winter. What about people that need that to eat? What are they going to do?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is not just about us. This is about us shipping stuff out to other countries, and they're not going to have it either.
Right. I'm trying to find, I think I'll put up a chart um, over that shows what goes in and what goes out of this country via these ports. But yeah, I think anyhow, I think this is where you just got to get formed. This is where you got to have a game plan and a process to your investment strategy. If it's short term or long term, whatever it is, having, taking into account these kind of events when they start to show rear their heads, it's like, okay, how do I protect my wealth? I think this is going to be a big learning experience for a lot of people.
I think economically, this could be on par with or worse than COVID if it goes on for very long, because it just people are going to lose their jobs, and we're not going to have those stimulus checks that they got during
Right.
COVID. And if you lose your jobs because you don't have any work because no one's shipping stuff in, then you start worrying about paying your mortgage. And you start worrying about your kids going to college and can I pay the tuition? Start worrying about insurance costs. You start worrying that's all going up. Okay. That's not good.
I
It's not good.
Well, here's the other thing. I shot a video this morning. I may post it up. But one of the things, I was walking down to the port here in Savannah, and I'm passing three banks. And what happens to the banking system in our country? If these guys go on strike, and it's a lengthy strike, and the companies that have, the second tier suppliers, and then everybody else who feeds off these, the money that comes these guys make, and these companies have taken loans out to grow, buy goods and to grow their business, this, that, and the other. What happens when they're 90 days late? What happens if this is so big? What happens to these banks? What happens to the financial system? Do they just let it go and give them a pass? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think this could bleeds into everything. And I think this guy knows it. Which tells me, it gives me this idea that maybe he'll get a week out, and these guys, they're the people they're striking against, will be put in a corner and be told, you have to strike a deal with these guys today because you're going to collapse the whole system
But even
if you
even if they
don't.
do that, that's a week. You know, it's going to ripple through the economy. You
Sure,
know,
but it's better than 30 days.
well, we'll
It's better
see.
than 90.
Go watch that guy on his video, and you'll see that he how determined he is, and he don't
Oh
care.
yeah. Oh, I know, but
Okay,
I mean, yeah, yeah. I honestly, I get it, and he is determined. And I think that everybody associated with him is probably very determined as well. I think if it starts to crumble our economic system in a big way, you're going to see Washington step in and go,
well,
no,
you know what they're going to do. They'll get in. They'll enforce or implement Taft-Hartley, which he already said that's fine for 90 days.
yeah,
We'll just do 2% of what we do, during the
right,
day. And we'll have the blue flu. I can't help if it's going to turn into winter. My boys, my men are getting sick. So you
yeah,
know we're going to be at half staff because half of them are sick all the time. So again, he mentioned that in his video. So I think that's what the government will do. I don't think they have any way to force these guys either side to come to an
yeah.
agreement. So,
I guess
and I
maybe
don't
their
know,
banks do.
I don't know who they're up against or how much money they have. But in his interview, the president of the union was like, "These guys have billions now, not millions, and they're giving themselves billions of dollars of bonuses and all this." So I don't think
Yeah.
they're going to just give up on it because
No,
someone
I don't.
tells them.
I guess my point is that I don't think they'll give up. The dock workers will give up. I think the pressure on their, what do they call them? Maritime group, or
Yeah,
um,
the
are going to
owners.
come under a vice of, you're going to make a deal. Here's what you're going to do. And it may not be the government, it may be the money people like Goldman, like the big money people who make these loans and, finance some of these guys. Maybe they walk in the door and say, "You're here. We're going to do. We're going to take your company away from you, or you're going to do this, and this is how we're going to end this thing because it's killing
I,
us."
I don't see that. I don't see that.
I
I
don't
don't see that
know.
anyone has that power to do that. Shipping's been around for centuries. Okay. And ship owners and shipping, that's where a lot of money came from, shipping magnates, and they still have that money.
Sure.
So I just I see I see I see this going on for a little bit until I think it'd be more likely in pain when people start complaining and calling their senators and their congressmen and their governors and their mayors,
Yeah.
and that's when it's going to happen.
The other side is these guys aren't going to get paid. I mean, granted, their union will probably back them financially in some way, but at some point that money may run out.
Well, you don't think they've been saving up money? They don't think they've known
Oh
this is
yeah.
coming?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's just a
yeah,
matter of how much. How much have they been saving? I mean, both sides have been saving. If they haven't sat down since June, they're preparing for this. They both sides are.
yeah.
It's just a matter of who's going to say, who's going to say uncle, you
Well, I don't
know?
think, but I think even if you look at, let's just say the longshoremen, I'm sure that most of them, I mean, they make enough money, and if they knew this was coming, they're smart enough to know. I'm going to say, I would say a minimum of 6 months. If I were a longshoreman, that's what I would do. And I'm sure that
Yeah.
the union president seems to be smart enough to have, things in place. Um, in fact, God, if I was join a union or wanted to, I'd join his because if I could get an 80% pay increase, and I would,
Yeah.
that would be awesome.
You said
So
they make $39 an hour and the West Coast
that's
makes 54?
50 something, yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Wow. And this is a pay increase over the lifetime of their contract, which is 6 years, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
It's not immediate.
Right.
Because if it's immediate, that's a whole nother form of inflation that we're gonna see. Yeah.
But even you think 80% over 6 years is still a pretty good clip. It's in the teens, you
Oh
know.
yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
yeah, absolutely. Well, Mark, I think this is one of those events that you don't know the answer to it until you know until the answer is presented. A miracle could happen between now and midnight, or 9 months or 90 days from now, we're sitting here talking about this, going, "Holy crap!"
yeah.
NVIDIA at 5. You know, uh, this could. I hate to see that happen. I hate to see that happen.
Well, this is where
Just a
we are.
reality.
This is where
Yeah,
we are, and this is, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just a regular guy like you,
yeah,
and all we can do is be aware of it, protect ourselves, as much as we can, uh, protect our assets as much as we can. Um, know what's coming and do what you have to do to survive, basically.
yeah,
And we'll get through all this, just like always, for the most part. You know,
yeah, yeah. It's a process. Just
I
have a
think.
process, have a game plan, put it in place. And if you don't have one, check us out.
Well, we'll still
And
be swing trade. We'll still be swing trading. So, you know,
yeah. Well, and it's
and
we offer,
and until that point, I have a plan. And
yeah.
here's my plan. This is what
Watch.
I'm going to do because I'm going to sit and watch, eat popcorn. I'm going to watch to see what happens because that's basically all that I can do right now, other
Yeah.
than swing trade and you know, there's always a market somewhere for us to swing trade in, and that's what I'll do. And money always flows, and that's where we'll find it, and that's what we'll try to do. Help
Yep.
our members.
All right, Mark. I think that we've beaten this dead horse enough
I think so.
until until tomorrow.
Yeah.
When you start to
Well,
see
tomorrow will
really
be
what's
interesting
happening.
too. Tomorrow
Yeah.
will be interesting. We'll see what happens.
Well, a week from now will be interesting to see
Yeah,
where we're at. Yeah.
that's
Well,
true.
all right.
That's true.
Well, thank Mark and myself, we wish you the best. Have a process, have a plan. Check us out, www.bus13.ai or bestofusinvestors.com. Hit the subscribe button here on the YouTube channel. We'd like to hear your opinion and your point of view of all this. It's very interesting to hear what you have to say and what your perspective on this. But we offer 2 levels of service today. We're going to be offering a new service in the coming week or so, which is entry level. So check us out at bus13.ai. That's www.bus13.ai. In the meantime, take care of yourself, take care of your family, protect your wealth, and always live loud. Peace.
And
See ya.
go get your bananas.
Go get your bananas.
Bananas.
All right.
And
Put